BestBookBits.com brings you the book summary of Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition. Many thousands have benefited from the big book and its simple but profound explanation of the doctrines behind Alcoholics Anonymous, which was founded in 1935 by Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith. Now, before we start this summary, we at Best Book Bits have done over 1,000 book summaries in video, written, and audio format, so check us out at bestbookbits.com, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. On with the summary. Preface. This is the 4th edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. The third edition, which came off in the press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately nearly 20 million in all formats. We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. Strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery. By the end of 1939, it was estimated that 800 alcoholics were on their way to recovery. In the spring of 1940, John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave a dinner to many of his friends, to which he invited AA members to tell their stories. News of this got on the world wires. Inquiries poured in again, and many people went to the bookstores to get the book Alcoholics Anonymous. By March 1941, the membership shot up to 2,000. By the close of 1941, AA numbered 8,000 members. The mushrooming process was in full swing. AA had become a national institution. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Other thousands came to a few AA meetings and at first decided they didn't want the program, but a great number of these, about 2 out of 3, began to return as time passed. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organisation. Neither does AA take any particular medical point of view, though we cooperate widely with the men of medicine as well as with the men of religion. By March of 1976, when this edition went to the printer, the total worldwide membership of Alcoholics Anonymous was conservatively estimated at more than 1 million, with almost 28,000 groups in meetings in over 90 countries. Each day, somewhere in the world, recovery begins when one alcoholic talks with another alcoholic, sharing experience, strength, and hope. Forward to the 4th edition. This 4th edition of Alcoholics Anonymous came off the press in November 2001, at the start of a new millennium. Since the 3rd edition was published in 1976, worldwide membership of AA has just about doubled to an estimated 2 million or more, with nearly 100,800 groups meeting in approximately 150 countries around the world. Currently, Alcoholics Anonymous has been translated into 43 languages, taking advantage of the technological advances. For example, AA members with computers can participate in meetings online, sharing with fellow alcoholics across the country or around the world. In any meeting, anywhere, AAs share experience, strength, and hope with each other in order to stay sober and help other alcoholics. Modem to modem or face to face, AA speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. We who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defects. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to desire again, and so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. Unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, and the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. The classification of an alcoholic seems more difficult, and in much detail is outside the scope of this book. There are, of course, the psychopaths who are emotionally unstable. We are all familiar with this type. They are always going on the wagon for keeps. They are over remorseful and make many resolutions, but never a decision. There is a type of man who is unwilling to admit that he cannot take a drink. He plans various ways of drinking. He changes his brand of his environment. There is a type who always believe that after being entirely free from alcohol for a period of time, he can take a drink without danger. There is the manic depressive type who is perhaps the least understood by his friends, and about whom a whole chapter could be written. Then there are the types entirely normal in every respect except in the effect alcohol has upon them. They are often able, intelligent, friendly people. All these, and many others, have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. Chapter 1. Bill's story. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. The remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. In alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to the combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. God has done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had faded. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build. Thus, I was convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. At long last, I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. There I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing. Without him, I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. I have not had a drink since. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems, as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. Simple, but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light, who precedes over us all. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lined up, as though the great clean wind of a mountain top blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how apparently true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. Faith has to work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. Bill W., the co-founder of AA, died in January 24, 1971. Chapter 2. There is a solution. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from the drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring it into consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Chapter 3. More about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he would control and enjoy his drinking is the greatest obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were gaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitfall and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over the considerable period, we get worse, never better. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there have been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may be one day confirm this, but it hasn't done so yet. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who is still showing irritability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to them. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever, with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We could increase the list ad infinitum. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking, but the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We have heard of a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of the overempowering desire to do so. Here is one. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after those bouts and quietened himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. An exceptional man, he remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. Then he fell victim to a belief which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. Out came his carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months, he was in the hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime. Then, gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. Every means of solving his problem with money could buy was at his disposal. Every attempt failed. Through a robust man at his retirement, he went to pieces quickly and he was dead within 4 years. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. For those who are unable to drink modestly, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what had already happened. We now see that when we begin to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little seriousness or effect thought during the period of predetermination of what the terrific consequences might be. The actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers, as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. He was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him sober for the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. Not only had I been off guard, I had made no fight whatsoever against the first drink. This time, I had not thought of the consequences at all. If I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come. I would drink again. They had said that though I did raise a defense, it would one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink. I knew from the moment that I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots. An alcoholic mentality was a hopeless condition. They cited cases out of their own experience by the dozen. This process snuffed out the last flicker of conviction that I could do the job myself. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Chapter 4. We Agnostics. In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. To one who feels he is an atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible, but to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he is an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis, we are not always easy alternatives to face. Find a problem greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. As soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with Him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction. Provided we took other simple steps, we found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men and women. Are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of the spirit as we were the ancients about the realm of the material? When we saw others solve their problem by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. The Wright brothers' almost childishly faith that they could build a machine that would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to the idea that self-sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us that God's sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted the Wrights would never fly. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else He is nothing. God either is or He isn't. What was our choice to be? For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Chapter 5. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. Half measures avail us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked His protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all the persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guided to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C. That God could and would if he were sought. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collusion with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. Is they're ever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. We alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter, in this drum of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, but this conception was the keystone of the new and triumphant arc through which we passed to freedom. When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed. If we kept close to him and performed his work well, established on such a footing, we become less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, "God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may do better thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always." We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them properly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do not squander the hours that might have been worthwhile, but with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of the spiritual experience. This business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of the alcohol returns and we drink again, and with us, the drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. Chapter 6. Into action. This was perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it is necessary to go much further. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension that makes for more drinking. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. When ready, we say something like this: "My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen." We have now completed step 7. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without work is dead. Let's look at step 8 and 9. We have a list of all the persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we hadn't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Simply, we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does not throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part, it's water over the dam. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator shows us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and the economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we are being placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and the rest of our laurels. We headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Step 11. Suggest prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy of this matter of prayer. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. There is action and more action. Faith without work is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. Chapter 7. Working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensue immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you. To have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. We have no monopoly on God. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day, if need be. This truth, job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that he trust in God and clean house. Assuming we are spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. People have said we must not go where liquor is served. We must not have it in our homes. We must not shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes. We must not go into bars. Our friends must hide their bottles. If we go to their houses, we mustn't think or be reminded about alcohol at all. Our experience shows that this is not necessarily so. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. There is something the matter with his spiritual status. His only chance of sobriety would be some place like the Greenland ice cap, and even there, an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle of scotch and ruin everything. It is our belief any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to fail. If the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but he usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have always failed. After all, our problems were our own making. Bottles were only a symbol. Besides, we have stopped fighting anybody or anything. We have to. He wants to want to stop. Chapter 9. The family afterward. All members of the family should meet upon the common ground of tolerance, understanding, and love. This involves a process of deflation. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in-laws, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family's attitude towards himself or herself. Each is interested in having his or her wishes respected. We find the more one member of the family demands that the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. This makes for discord and unhappiness. Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it is almost the only one. Cling to the thought that, in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. First things first, live and let live. Easy does it. Chapter 10. To employers. To understand that he must undergo a change of heart to get over drinking will require a transformation of thought and attitude. We all had to place recovery above everything. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. Wherever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalries, and arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are trying to pull us down. Often, this is not so at all, but sometimes our drinking will be used politically. Chapter 11. A vision for you. The familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. They must help other alcoholics if they will remain sober. That motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others. They shared their homes, their slender resources, and gladly devoted their spare hours to fellow sufferers. They were willing, by day or night, to place a new man in the hospital and visit him afterward. They grew in numbers. They experienced a few distressing failures, but in those cases they made an effort to bring the man's family into a spiritual way of living, thus relieving much worry and suffering. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and the great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trod the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Dr. Bob's Nightmare. A co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, the birth of our society dates from the first day of permanent sobriety, June 10th, 1935. To 1950, the year of his death, he carried the AA message to more than 5,000 alcoholic men and women, and to all these he gave his medical services without thought of charge. June 10, 1935, and that was my last drink. As I write, nearly 4 years have passed. The question which might naturally come into your mind would be, what did the man do or say that was different from what others has done or said? It must be remembered that I had read a great deal and talked to everyone who knew or thoroughly they knew anything about the subject of alcoholism. But this was a man who has experienced many years of frightful drinking, who had had most of all the drunkard's experiences known to man, but who had been cured by the very means I had been trying to employ, that is to say, the spiritual approach. He gave me information about the subject of alcoholism, which was undoubtedly helpful. Oh, far more important was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I have ever talked, who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. In other words, he talked my language. He knew all the answers, and certainly not because he had picked them up in his reading. I spend a great deal of time passing on what I learned to others who want and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. Number 1, sense of duty. Number 2, it is a pleasure. 3, because in doing so, I am paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. Unlike most of the crowd, I do not get over my craving for liquor much during the first 2.5 years of abstinence. It was almost always with me, but at no time have I been anywhere near yielding. I used to get terribly upset when I saw my friends drink, and I knew I could not. But I schooled myself to believe that I thought I once had the same privilege. I had abused it so frightfully that it was withdrawn, so it doesn't behoove me to squawk about it, for, after all, nobody had ever had thrown me down and poured liquor down my throat. If you think you are an atheist, an agnostic, a skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what is in this book, I feel sorry for you. If you still think you're strong enough to beat the game alone, that is your affair. But if you really and truly want to quit drinking liquor for good and all sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know that we have the answer for you. It never fails if you go about it with one half the zeal you have been in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink. After reviewing these things and realizing what liquor had cost me, I went to the higher power, that to me was God, without any reservation, and admitted that I was completely powerless over alcohol and that I was willing to do anything in the world to get rid of the problem. In fact, I admitted that from then on, I was willing to let God take over instead of me. Each day I would try to find out what His will was and try to follow that, rather than trying to get Him to always agree that the things I thought up for myself were the things best for me. So when they came back, I told them, whether you quit 6 days, months, or years, if you go out and take a drink or two, you'll end up in this hospital tied down, just like you have been in the past 6 months. You are an alcoholic. As far as I know, that was the first time I've ever paid any attention to that word. I figured I was just a drunk, and they said, no, you have a disease, and it doesn't make any difference how long you do with it. After a drink or two, you'll end up just like you are now. That certainly was real disheartening news at the time. The next question they asked me, you can quit 24 hours, can't you? I said, sure, yes, anybody can do that for 24 hours. They said, that's what we're talking about, just 24 hours at a time. That sure did take a load off my mind. Every time I'd start thinking about drinking, I would think of the long dry years ahead without having a drink. But this idea of 24 hours, that it was up to me from then on, was a lot of help. If they can do it, I can do it. Over and over, he said this to himself. Finally, out of this hope, there burst conviction. Now, he was sure. Then came a great joy. At length, peace stole over him, and he slept. It was the next 2 or 3 days after I had the first meet Doc and Bill that I finally came to a decision to turn my will over to God and to go along with this program to the best that I could. Their talk and action had instilled in me a certain amount of confidence, although I was not too absolutely certain. I wasn't afraid that the program wouldn't work, but I still was doubtful whether I would be able to hang on to that program. But I did come to the conclusion that I was willing to put everything I had into it with God's power, and that I wanted to do just that. I remember telling them too that it was going to be awfully tough because I did some other things, smoked cigarettes and played penny ant poker and sometimes bet on the horse races, and they said, don't you think you're having more trouble with this drinking than anything else at the present time? Don't you believe that you're going to have all you can do to get rid of that? Yes, I said reluctantly, I probably will. They said, let's forget about those other things. That is, trying to eliminate them all at once and concentrate on the drink. I've heard people get up in meetings and say it. Is this statement, I came into AA solely for the purpose of sobriety, but it has been through AA that I have found God. I became an active alcoholic from that first day. When alcohol produced a very special effect in me, I was transformed. Alcohol suddenly made me into what I had always wanted to be. Alcohol became my everyday companion. At first, I considered it a friend. Later, it became a heavy load that I couldn't get rid of. It turned out to be much more powerful than I was, even if for many years I could stay sober for short periods. I kept telling myself that one way or another I could get rid of alcohol. I was convinced I would find a way to stop drinking. I didn't want to acknowledge that alcohol had become so important in my life. Indeed, alcohol was giving me something I didn't want to lose. I would keep my job for a year while you go save the drunks. That is exactly what I set out to do. As I look back on it now, I did everything wrong, but at the least I was thinking of somebody else instead of myself. I had begun to get a little bit of something I am very full of now, and that is gratitude. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. It is very simple, though not always easy, but it can be done. I know the fellowship of AA doesn't offer any guarantees, but I also know that in the future I do not have to drink. I want to keep this life of peace, serenity, and tranquility that I have found. When I entered a sanitarium for prolonged and intensive psychiatric treatment, I was convinced that I was having a serious mental breakdown. I wanted help and I tried to cooperate. As the treatment progressed, I began to get a picture of myself, of the temperament that had caused me so much trouble. I had been hypersensitive, shy, idealistic. My inability to accept the harsh realities of life had resulted in a disillusioned cynic, clothed in a protective armor against the world's misunderstandings. That armor had turned into prison walls, locking me in loneliness and fear. All I had left was an iron determination to live my own life in spite of the alien world, and here I was, an inwardly frightened, outwardly defiant woman who desperately needed a prop to keep going. Alcohol was that prop, and I didn't see how I could live without it. I wasn't mad or vicious. I was a sick person. I was suffering from an actual disease that had a name and symptoms like diabetes or cancer or TB, and the disease was respectable, not a moral stigma. We cannot live with anger. The walls crumbled and the light streamed in. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't helpless. I was free, and I didn't have to drink to show them. This wasn't religion. This was freedom. Freedom from anger and fear. Freedom to know happiness and freedom to know love. The thing I do is to say, God, here I am, and here are all my troubles. I've made a mess of the things and can't do anything about it. You take me and all my troubles and do anything you want with me. Does that answer your question? I am learning that I cannot have my own way as I used to. I blame my wife and children. Anger possessed me. Anger such as I have never felt before. Strength has come from weakness. I learned that honesty is truth, and that truth shall make us free. Inwardly reward myself for my efforts with that first drink. Every time I blacked out, and that was every time I drank, there was always that gnawing fear. What did I do this time? The mental state of the sick alcoholic is beyond description. But we were staying sober as long as we kept and talked together. There was one meeting a week at Bill's home in Brooklyn, and we all took turns there spouting off how we had changed our lives overnight, how many drunks we had saved and straightened out, and last but not least, how God had touched each of us personally on the shoulder. Boy, what a circle of confused idolists. Yet we all had one really sincere purpose in our hearts, and that was not to drink. Our one desire is to stay in AA and not on it. Our pet slogan is, easy does it. I got to a place where I'd look forward to the weekends drinking and pacify myself by saying that weekends were mine, that it didn't interfere with my family or with my business if I drank on the weekends, but the weekend stretched onto Mondays, and the time soon came when I drank every day. One clear thought came to me: try prayer. You can't lose, and maybe God will help you. Just maybe. Mind you, having no one else to turn to, I was willing to give him a chance. Although with considerable doubt, I got down on my knees for the first time in 30 years. The prayer I said was simple. It went something like this: God, for 18 years I've been unable to handle this problem. Please let me turn it over to you. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has changed. The scales had dropped from my eyes, and I could see life in its proper perspective. I had tried to be the center of my own little world, whereas God was the center of a vast universe, of which I was perhaps an essential but a very tiny part. There have also been numerous times when I have thought about taking a drink. Such thinking usually begins with thoughts of the pleasant drinking of my youth. I learned early in my AA life that I could not afford to fondle such thoughts as you might fondle a pet, because this particular pet grew into a monster. Instead, I quickly substitute one or another vivid scene from the nightmare of my later drinking. The 6-step program, as it was at the time, the 6 steps were: 1. Complete deflation. 2. Dependence and guidance from a higher power. 3. Moral inventory. 4. Confession. 5. Restitution. And 6. Continued work with other alcoholics. When you are right and the time is right, Providence will provide. One could not take the moral inventory and then file it away, that the alcoholic has to continue to take inventory every day if he expects to get well and stay well. I was 33 years old and my life was spent. I was caught in a cycle of alcohol and sedation that was proving inescapable, and consciousness had become intolerable. Every doctor gets his quota of alcoholic patients. Some of us struggle with these people because we know that they are really very sick, but we also know that short of any sort of miracle, we are not going to help them except temporarily, and that will inevitably get worse and worse until one or two things happen. Either they die of acute alcoholism, or they develop wet brains and have to be put away permanently. He further explained that alcohol was no respecter of sex or background, but that most of the alcoholics he had encountered had better than average minds and abilities. He said the alcoholics seemed to possess a native acuteness and usually excelled in their fields, regardless of environmental or educational advantages. We watch the alcoholic performing in a position of responsibility, and we know that because he is drinking heavily and daily, he has cut his capacities by 50%, and still seems to be able to do a satisfactory job. And we wonder how much further this man could go if his alcoholic problem could be removed and he could throw 100% of his abilities into action. But of course, he continued, eventually the alcoholic loses all his capacities as his disease gets progressively worse, and this is a tragedy that is painful to watch, the disintegration of a sound mind and body. More often, I was having these little moments of clarity. Times I knew for sure that I was an alcoholic. Times when I was looking at the bottom of my glass, asking myself, why am I doing this? Something had to give. Something had to change. I was suicidal, evaluating every part of my life for what could be wrong. It culminated in one last night of drinking and staring at the problem. It made me sick to think about it, and even sicker to continue drinking it away. I was forced to look at my drinking as the chief suspect. The idea that religion and spirituality were not one and the same was a new notion. My sponsor asked that I merely remain open-minded to the possibility that there was a power greater than myself, one of my own understanding. He assured me that no person was going to impose a belief system on me, that it was a personal matter. Reluctantly, I opened my mind to the fact that maybe, just maybe, there was something to this spiritual lifestyle. Slowly but surely, I realized there was indeed a power greater than myself, and I soon found myself with a full-time God in my life, and following a spiritual path that didn't conflict with my personal religious convictions. I started drinking nearly 30 years ago, right after I was married. My first drinking spree was on corn liquor, and I was allergic to it. Believe me, I was deathly sick every time I took a drink, but we had to do a lot of entertaining. My husband liked to have a good time. I was very young, and I wanted to have a good time too. The only way I knew to do it was to drink right along with him. I'm trying now each day to make up for those selfish thoughts, foolish things I did in my drinking days. I hope that I never forget to be grateful. I should have realized that alcohol was getting hold of me when I started to become secretive in my drinking. I never knew which came first, the thinking or the drinking. If I could only stop thinking, I wouldn't drink. If I could only stop drinking, maybe I wouldn't think. But they were all mixed up together, and I was mixed up inside, and yet I had to have that drink. After that, I sat for a week, a body in a chair, a mind off in space. I thought the two would never get together. I knew that alcohol and I had to part. I couldn't live with it anymore, and yet how was I going to live without it? I didn't know. I was bitter, living in hate. The very person who stood with me through it all and has been my greatest help was the person that I turned against, my husband. I also turned against my family, my mother. The people who would have come to help me were just the people I would have nothing to do with. Nevertheless, I began to try to live without alcohol, but I only succeeded in fighting it. And believe me, an alcoholic cannot fight alcohol. I said to my husband, I'm going to try to get interested in something outside to get myself out of this rut I'm in. Mere sensation from drinking is not enough for an alcoholic, while the need for that drink goes on. Half measures avail us nothing. No one made me drink, and no one was going to make me stay sober. This program is for the people who want it, not people who need it. If everyone who needed AA showed up, we would be bursting at the seams. Unfortunately, most never make it to the door. Following the principles laid out in the big book has not always been comfortable, nor will I claim perfection. I have yet to find a place in the big book that says, now you have completed the steps, have a nice life. The program is a plan for a lifetime of daily living. There have been occasions when the temptation to slack off has won. I view each of these as learning opportunities. You hit bottom when you stop digging. You hit bottom when you stop digging. Denial is the most cunning, baffling, and powerful part of my disease, the disease of alcoholism. I found everything I had ever looked for in Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to thank God for putting AA in my life. Now I thank AA for putting God in my life. As long as I put AA first in my life, everything that I put second would be first class. I asked the therapist I was seeing, sometimes with a beer in hand, would I have to stop? His answer was that we had to find out why I drank. I already tried, but was never able to find out why until I learned the answer in AA, because I'm an alcoholic. I learned that alcoholism isn't a sin, it's a disease. The slogan on the walls, which at first made me shudder, began to impress me as truths I could live by, one day at a time. Easy does it. Keep it simple. Live and let live. Let go and let God. The Serenity Prayer. Commitment and service were part of recovery. I was told that to keep it, we have to give it away. How can a person with a fine family, an attractive home, an excellent position, and high standing in an important city become an alcoholic? As I later found out through Alcoholics Anonymous, alcohol is no respecter of economic status, social and business standing, or intelligence. In the first step of the 12 steps of AA, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. The explanation that alcoholism was a disease of a twofold nature, an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind. The obsession of the mind was a little harder to understand, and yet everyone has obsessions of various kinds. The alcoholic has them to an exaggerated degree. Over a period of time, he has built up self-pity and resentments toward anyone or anything that interferes with his drinking. He suggests that for me a good starting point would be simply be recognition of the fact that I had fallen in a running world. In short, acceptance of the fact that I was not God. He also suggested that I might try occasionally to act as if I believed. Somewhere I had heard that it's easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking than to think yourself into a new way of acting. And this made sense in the context of acting as if. I remember telling a friend years ago that I didn't have a drinking problem, but I had a stopping problem. We laughed. It was true. But there was something else going on, something that never occurred to me until I came into AA. I didn't just have a stopping problem, I had a starting problem too. In working the steps, my life changed. I think differently today. I feel different today. I am new. We have a sign at the AA meetings I go to that says, "Expect a miracle." My sobriety is full of miracles. Don't drink, don't think, go to meetings. Many years later, although alcohol is not a part of my life and I no longer have the compulsion to drink, it can still occur to me what a good drink tastes like and what it can do for me. From my stand at attention alcoholic taste buds right down to the stretched out tingling toes. As my sponsor used to point out, such thoughts are like red flags, telling me that something is not right, that I am stretched beyond my sober limit. It's time to get back to basic AA and see what needs changing. That special relationship with alcohol will always be there, waiting to seduce me again. I can stay protected by continuing to be an active member of AA. Later I learned the definition of a social drinker, someone who can take it or leave it. They said I only had to go to meetings on days I would have had a drink. They said I needed to identify, not compare. I didn't know what they meant. What was the difference? Identifying, they said, was trying to see how I was like the people I was with. Comparing, they told me, was looking for differences, usually seeing how I was better than others. By taking care of the internal environment via the 12 steps and letting the external environment take care of itself. I'm a success today if I don't drink today. Today there is absolutely nothing in the world more important to me than keeping this alcoholic sober. Not taking a drink is by far the most important thing I do each day. It helped me a great deal to become convinced that alcoholism was a disease, not a moral issue, that I had been drinking as a result of a compulsion, even though I had not been aware of the compulsion at the time, and that sobriety was not a matter of willpower. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my drinking problem. When I stopped living in the problem and began living in the answer, the problem went away. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober unless I accept life completely on life's terms. I could not be happy. I needed to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. AA and acceptance has taught me that there is a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us, that we are all children of God and we each have a right to be here. When I complain about me and about you, I am complaining about God's handiwork. I am saying that I know better than God. Before AA, I judged myself by my intentions, while the world was judging me by my actions. One of my primary differences between alcoholics and non-alcoholics is that non-alcoholics change their behavior to meet their goals, and alcoholics change their goals to meet their behavior. You don't have to drink it over. It's not how much you drink, it's what drinking does to you. The tides of life flow endlessly, for better or worse, both good and bad, and I cannot allow my sobriety to become dependent on these ups and downs of living. Sobriety must live a life on its own. There is a saying that alcoholics either get sobered up, locked up, or covered up. From experience, I've realized that I cannot go back and make a brand new start, but through AA, I can start from now and make a brand new end. I went to meetings every day and started taking the steps. The first step showed me that I was powerless over alcohol and anything else that threatened my sobriety or muddled my thinking. Alcohol was only a symptom of a much deeper problem of dishonesty and denial. What I've learned is that it doesn't matter what hardships and losses I've endured in sobriety, I have not had to go back to drinking. As long as I work the program, keep being of service, go to meetings, and keep my spiritual life together, I can live a decent life. As my faith grows, my fears lessen. True happiness is found in the journey, not the destination. Humility is the key. Some people get sober because they're afraid to die. I knew I would live, and that was far more terrifying. I had surrendered. For each step, I still had to go through the process of recognizing that I had no control over my drinking. I had to understand that the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous had helped others and could help me. I had to realize that if I did want sobriety, I had better do the steps whether I liked them or not. Every time I ran into trouble, I ultimately found that I was resisting change. My mentor had to remind me that AA is not just a project. AA offers me an opportunity to improve the quality of my life. I came to recognize that there is always a deeper and wider experience awaiting me. All my sobriety and growth, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, were dependent on my willingness to listen, understand, and change. There is just one good drunk in every alcoholic's life, and that's the one thing that brings us into AA. The AA members who sponsored me told me in the beginning that I would not only find a way to live without having a drink, but that I would find a way to live without wanting to drink. If I would do these simple things, they said, if you want to know how this program works, take the first word of your question. The H is for honesty, and the O is for open-mindedness, and the W is for willingness. If you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them. And you realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassion, understanding, and love. The only real freedom a human being can ever know is doing what you ought to do because you want to do it. AA does not teach us how to handle our drinking. He said it teaches us how to handle sobriety. It's no great trick to stop drinking. The trick is to stay stopped. I've come to realize that the name of the game is not so much to stop drinking as to stay sober. Alcoholics can stop drinking in many places and many ways, but Alcoholics Anonymous offers us a way to stay sober. God willing, we remember of AA may never again have to deal with drinking, but we have to deal with sobriety every day. The AA tradition, the 12 traditions. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such ought never to be organized, but may create service boards or committees directly responsible for those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous have no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal immunity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And that's a wrap on this book summary, Alcoholics Anonymous 4th edition. If you like this and want to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, Google meetings and check out the big book. We at Best Book Bits have done over 1,000 book summaries in video written in audio format. So check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and the website bestbookbits.com. If you like the summary, click the link to download this. We at Best Book Bits again have put together our top 500 best book bit summaries in one massive downloadable PDF and MP3. So if you want to support the channel, click the link to download this. Take them offline. Keep